I don't have a great bio. I should have asked you about bio, but we've got Robert Harden here. I know you guys probably saw a lot on the emails. I know that he's basically the Sub-2 leader, which is a huge national community. What do you guys have, like 13,000?
No, it's like
25?
15 or 16,000 now.
And so it's a big group that's really focused on creative finance. And of course, the figurehead is Pace Morby. And so has anybody, who's heard of Pace Morby? Let's see. Okay, there's a few people that haven't. It's got if you haven't, and he's got lots of content online. So
A tremendous amount.
Check it out. He's always got lots of great ideas. But and he's coming to Oregon next month.
Yes, he's actually going to be at the Build Northwest. It's Randy Bird's. Do you guys know who Randy Bird is? Anybody?
He's a realtor out of.
I think he's in Eugene.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, he's putting on Build Northwest. Pace is coming to town. And after, he's gonna be here on Saturday, the 23rd. And I'm actually throwing a meetup at the Sassy Onion, the same place to do the Salem real estate meetup. Pace will be there for 3 hours. So I haven't put it out there yet because Randy's a friend of mine. I don't want to take away tickets from his thing. But it should be, I'll post it here in a couple days.
Cool.
So if you want to meet Pace.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, tonight is about Robert and some of the great things that he's doing, and he's going to talk about some of the Sub-2 and other creative finance deals that he's doing and some of the awesome strategies that he's got. So welcome, Rob.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me here. I really, appreciate being invited, and you've been doing this meetup for 5 years now. So and it's rooms like this is where deals happen. This is where you meet your future JV partners. You're going to meet lenders, people doing the same thing you're doing. It helps you get inspired. I know I was talking to Isaiah earlier, wherever Isaiah is, right back there. And he was telling me how, he's been going to meetups for this last year, and it's actually, charged him and got him, he's doing tremendous things too. So, but Ryan, thank you so much. You've been doing this for 5 years, and you're providing such good value to everybody. Can we give Ryan a round of applause?
And Jesse.
Oh, I always forget Jesse. Yeah, we got his partner Jesse, and then we also have the other Ryan. So we have Team Ryan here that are putting everything together. So thank you guys, because it's these kind of meetups. This is where I got my inspiration. This is how I started developing and growing, meeting other investors that are 2, 3, 20 steps ahead of me, and then people that are several steps behind, and helping everybody in between. So. Okay, so who am I? So I am a husband, a father, a business owner. So I have a construction company, Indigo Construction. We do drywall, insulation, and paint. So that's one of my businesses. The other businesses are water damage. So we have Restoration 1 of Portland, Restoration 1 of Phoenix, Arizona, and Restoration 1 of Corvallis. We just launched that one a few months ago. It's actually doing pretty good. But I wish I could take credit for those businesses, but my brother-in-law is the one that he really built them and developed them and everything. So it's me and my wife. We like to travel. That's one of the things we love to do. Okay, so real estate investments. So I have 29 doors, and 15 of those doors are Sub-2 doors. And that's what we'll be talking about tonight. What is Sub-2? What do those transactions look like? And how you can do them too. I just closed on 16 lots in Nehalem, Oregon. So me and a few other partners, we had been working on this deal for, oh my God, it's been 1.5 years. This thing's taken 1.5 years. They were appraised at 1.4 million 4 years ago, and we locked them up. Actually, we just closed on them for $75,000. So $75K. We have a buyer in place, but we've had all kinds of problems with this deal. So the sellers got really squeamish towards the end. So we just needed to close on them so that we could have the time to find another buyer for them. My latest fix and flip goes live tomorrow. It's in Vernonia, Oregon. It's out in the boonies on the sticks, so it's pretty far away. We have other deals in the process, other Sub-2 deals that we have under contract that we're still working on right now. How did I get into real estate investing? So my journey started just like many of you here probably did. Who started with the Bigger Pockets podcast? Yeah, exactly. I had the same, I'm an accidental investor. I bought my first property that I lived in, and then when I moved, I heard it was a great way to build wealth by renting out your property and then buying another one. So I started out that way, the traditional route. So my first couple properties were just like that. Back in 2014, though, I wanted more. So I wanted to learn how to be a real estate investor and how to expand my portfolio. I started listening to Bigger Pockets. And the Bigger Pockets, they really push the BRRRR strategy. So is anybody familiar with the BRRRR strategy? So we have a lot of people here. So for those that aren't, it's you buy it, you rehab it, you rent it out, and you repeat. So that's the whole process where and the whole goal is to get all of your money back and then go into another property. The problem I ran into with the BRRRR strategy out here is the same thing that probably everybody that raised their hand has an issue with, is that the properties are expensive and the rents are not quite as much. The strategy works really well in the Midwest, like where Shane's from. You're probably used to stuff like that. So just like you probably came out here and you're like, how do I do the BRRRR strategy in Oregon? And you probably started banging your head against the wall, because that's what I did. I started underwriting every single deal that came my way. I got on every wholesaler list. I started underwriting and I couldn't make things work. I was trying to figure out how do I make the BRRRR strategy work here in Oregon? Occasionally a deal would come by, but there's such good deals at that point, people would already snatch those ones up. Those deals just go poof like really quick. That actually it works on. Now, back in 2018 is when I joined another mentorship before I joined Sub-2. The mentorship was Wholesaling Inc. Is anybody familiar with Wholesaling Inc.? Right now, the face of it is Brent Daniels. He's Mr. Talk to People, TTP. Well, when I joined, it was a different guy named Cody Hoffine, and their whole premise was postcards. Has anybody done direct mail before? It's really expensive, right? Super expensive. I dropped $20K in direct mail and got 0 deals. The mentorship was really cool. They taught us how to pull lists and define motivated sellers, and I would do mailers, and I had so many people call me. But the problem I ran into is that I didn't know how to close these people. I had all these conversations. I had probably 300 leads in my CRM, and over again, I kept having great conversations, but I didn't know how to move people through a sales process. So that was my biggest bottleneck at the time. And there's several deals that I could have gotten that I wasn't able to convert on just because I didn't have a sales process. Around this time too, I was listening to more podcasts and everything, trying to figure things out. And Bigger Pockets had this guest on, and he was this crazy guy. He kind of was a little bit arrogant and a little bit sassy. And after listening to him, I didn't like him at first. He was really pretty annoying. But after I listened to what he had to say, he was buying properties where he was taking over mortgages. He was giving sellers very little money. And some sellers he actually interacted with actually paid him to take their property. So not only was he getting stuff for nothing, he was cash flowing and doing all these amazing things. So I was riveted during the podcast that Bigger Pockets had on there. And I had to, because I came in like halfway, and then I backtracked after and found out who this person was. And it was Pace Morby. So after I heard Pace, I went on his YouTube channel. And just like Ryan was talking about earlier, his YouTube channel, he has so much content that I just went down the rabbit hole. I started listening to everything he had. And who here is in Sub-2? I know we have some. I know Kelly is. Yep. Yeah. So those are in Sub-2. You guys know there's so much content, and Pace is just amazing at what he does. So after listening to him, I wanted to implement the things that he had going on. So what I did at that point is it took me several years actually before I joined. I was very interested, but I stepped, dabbling and having the same issue with the analysis paralysis, where you're underwriting and not taking action. But that all changed in 2022. That's when I joined Sub-2 in April of 2022. And at that point, I only had 4 properties. I had 3 commercial properties and 3 residential and 1 commercial property. And after I joined, they had this program that they had just wrapped up several months before. It's called the Zero to Hero Challenge. And in that challenge, this is one that I would recommend for newer investors. It's the same kind of concept. And all you do is you pick a market. So you could pick your local market, or you could pick a faraway market. You pull a list. You hire a virtual assistant. So someone that will actually make the calls, because cold calling is who's done cold calling in here? Do you guys who likes doing cold calling? He loves it. Yeah, cold calling is brutal. So what's amazing about it is that you can have a VA, you can pay someone $1,000 a month. I don't know, I have some friends that are paying $700 a month, some are $15, it all ranges. But you get a virtual assistant calling, and they're doing all that, stuff that you would beat your head against the wall doing. So they start generating leads, and then all you got to do is call the leads and close them and move on from there. But the cool thing about Sub-2 is that they teach you a sales process. Like, you can go in and listen to all of Pace's calls and other closers and learn how to be a closer. So once you learn that skill, you're able to close deals. So I hired a VA. My VA started calling, like all the, started getting me 2 leads a day. Within 3 weeks, I got my first contract. That one didn't close. I made so many mistakes on that one. But the good thing about making so many mistakes is if you learn from them, then you don't repeat those same mistakes. So I lost the deal because of a septic system, because I didn't know anything about septic. I'm a contractor, but I did not know anything about how septic systems worked. And I sat down at the table with this guy named Larry, and he was agreeing to sell his house which is in Sherwood, Oregon. House is worth about, at the time, a little over $500,000. And my VA hit him, and he said he was open to sell, and that he wanted to sell his house for $260,000. He told that to my VA. So as soon as the lead came in, and this is the first one that came in where the VA actually marked it as a hot lead. So I called Larry up, and sure enough, I just couldn't believe him. There's really a guy willing to sell his house for $260K. I got on the phone with Larry, and he goes, yeah, I'm ready to sell right now. I go, okay, when can we meet? And he goes, come on over. So I got in my car, and I live in Tualatin, so literally I was at Larry's house in 7 minutes. And we sat down at his kitchen table, and after I walked the property, and I brought my contract with me, so we sat down, and it took me 2 hours to get him to sign a contract. The guy kept stalling out, and he just wouldn't sign it, but I just sat there and basically stared at him for 2 hours. And then finally he signed it. But part of his agreement was, since he owned this house on this big chunk of property, he only wanted to sell the house and a little bit of property around it, the lot that it was on, but his septic system had a leach field all the way out through the back property. And that was the hangup. He wanted me to move the septic onto the property, and he was stubborn, and Larry would not let me do anything but that. So I had to cancel that one. So that was my first contract. Learned 8 million lessons on that one. But my VA also hit this other guy in Beaverton, Oregon. It's actually Aloha. And why that's important is because in Aloha, it's the unincorporated area of Washington County. So as a short-term rental, there are no laws or rules against it. So you can legally have a short-term rental in Aloha. So if you ever see deals that pop up in Aloha, keep that in mind, because it might not work as a long-term rental, but it's actually a very good place for a short-term or a mid-term. It's a little bit scary now with Intel laying off so many people. I would probably wait a little bit to see how that kind of shakes out, but this thing has been an amazing property. So this one here, my VA hit this guy named Lester. So Lester had a problem. He had squatters in his property. He didn't call them squatters. He just said that they weren't paying rent. He's like, I just got this issue. I have some people that have been living there for a little bit, and they're not paying rent. And I go, well, how long have they been living there, Lester? He's like, oh, it's been a couple months that, they just haven't been paying rent. And but the way he said it indicated that there's more to the story. Have you guys ever had a seller call where they say something in a weird way to where you're going, I think there's more here? So after the next call, it's so weird because Lester actually pushed the timeline. So, it's been a little, actually I think they've been there a little bit longer, like a year. So next phone call, he says they've been actually a year that they haven't been paying him. So a couple phone calls later, it actually goes to 5 years that people have been in there. He had a massive problem. He did not know how to solve it. I asked him, how'd you get into this position? He told me that the gentleman that rented his house, it was a Hispanic family, and they were deported. The head guy that he rented it to was deported, but they just kept bringing more family members up that kept just coming up to the property. So he didn't even know who lived in his house at this point. So I was extremely new, and I was bound determined, because I just joined Sub-2. I wanted to do a deal with every member in the community at that time. And at this time, there was only about 7 of us in Oregon. Now we have maybe 150 Sub-2 members in Oregon. So I still would love to do that, but it's going to take me a while to get, do 150 JV deals. So I partnered up with a guy named John Robinson. Does anybody know who John Robinson is? Yeah, exactly. So John, he has a meetup in Beaverton. I had met him at the meetup, and I knew he was in Sub-2, and I knew he was really experienced. So I partnered up with John. John and I teamed up on this property. He went out and took a look at it, and he gave me numbers, because I did not know how to really comp for fix and flip. I had been comping a lot of properties, but I trusted him more because he was a contractor and he had done a bunch of fix and flips. So that's the other reason why you need to be at these meetups with Ryan and Jesse and Ryan, is because you're going to meet other people that are several steps ahead of you that you can joint venture with and bring them in on your deal, because that, to me, it alleviated a lot of risk. I was very nervous about this one. It was my first deal. Even though I had the resources to do it, I just didn't have the confidence. And John gave me that confidence. So he gave me numbers that would work with the seller. So he gave me a cash price of $260. So originally we're just trying to fix and flip it. So I got on the phone with Lester and talked about a cash number, but he did not like that number. 260 was just way too low for him. Have you guys ever talked to a seller where they're like, hey, this is way too low? Well, after having that, I went back to John and I said, hey, John, what do we do here? And he's like, well, maybe we move to creative finance. We go for, and joining Sub-2, I knew basically what that was, but I never pitched it before. So he gave me a range. He goes, if you could get him to agree to anywhere from since we already offered him 260 cash, he's not going to go for that. Anywhere from 280 to 330 would be a good range. Well, I got on the phone with Lester and I was very nervous, and it was an awkward phone call trying to pitch him on a creative offer. And I messed up in the delivery. I went straight to my maximum and I go, hey, Lester, what about, 330? He's like, done. He goes, done. And I'm like, and I immediately knew I messed up. So then I'm trying to regain my composure, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, how do I salvage this? So, and he led the conversation. He goes, okay, we're good at 330. What's the interest rate? So I just sat there for a minute and I go, well, we're giving you a really high price. We can only do principal only. So I just let it sit. My way of saying 0%. And he sat there and it was so uncomfortable, but it just had to sit there for I felt like a year, but it probably was only about 15 seconds. And he goes, yeah, I'm okay with that. So he agreed to a 0% interest. And I didn't know what kind of timeline to give him. So he's like, well, how long am I going to have to carry this note for? And I said, because John told me anywhere from 5 is great. So I said 5 years, and he agreed to it. So he was immediately relieved, though, after we actually made the deal. So we got this one for $330,000, 0% interest, 5-year balloon. The payment on it is $902 a month. It was really weird because I sent it into, I was complaining to my accountant. I go, how come there's no interest write-off on this one? And I wasn't even smart enough to realize that, oh, that's right, there's 0 interest. There's no interest to take on. But the cool thing is it's now a short-term rental. We average I have a property manager that handles it. It does $3,500 a month net to me, and my payment's only $902 a month to the seller. And then with taxes, insurance, and a few other little fees, I'm about $1,500 a month out of pocket. So that's one of the powers, doing creative finance allows you to do. Yes?
So it sounds like you owned it pretty clear. Are you specifically looking for that?
I was not looking. That was one of the lists we had, but we actually, he owned it free and clear. And this will explain a little bit more. When I talked to Larry about it, and the reason why he actually allowed these people to live in his home for so long without dealing with it, he goes, do you know how much I pay in taxes every quarter? Guess how much I pay. Now, he's one of those rich guys that always wants to razzle dazzle you with the numbers. I go, how much, Lester? He's like, $250,000 a quarter he pays in taxes. So he did not even, he pays more taxes than what this house is worth, so, in a year, easily. So he just didn't care, but he was so relieved. After he signed all the contract, or after we closed, and he got, his down payment. Oh, I gave him $5,000 down too. So that was the other thing. It was very little money out of pocket. He said he's so relieved, and asked him, why are you so relieved, Lester? I thought I understood the whole story. He goes, well, this problem's actually been going on a lot longer than what I told you. I go, well, how much longer? He goes, 15 years that they've lived in my house without paying. So this is just one deal. There are so many properties out there that have a similar story and similar issues. So this is something that you can go out and find these opportunities just like we did. Yeah, please.
Your properties seem to be all.
Yes, they are. Okay, so when I first started, it was that 0 to hero. So I was finding my own opportunities. Then I quickly realized there are so many wholesalers and people that have different skill level. So you have a lot of people. So my business model now is joint venture. So there's a lot of, and it's been blessed by the Sub-2 community because a lot of new members come in and they're at the same position I was when I started. They didn't know how to negotiate. They understood the basics on how to find opportunity, but they didn't know how to have the conversation with the seller. So that's where I do most of my deals now. They'll bring me something that they can't quite figure out, and I'll either buy it or I'll help them wholesale it. So that's how I do it. But I am spread out though. So I have stuff, the farthest away one is in Louisiana. So I have one in Louisiana, and how I've got that one is we were doing outreach to agents here in Salem. And this one agent we talked to said, we told him what our buy box was and what we're looking for. And she goes, well, I don't have anything around here in Salem like that. But my brother is in foreclosure in Louisiana. So within 2 phone calls, we locked up a sub-2 deal in Louisiana with a 3.5% interest rate. The payment's like $1,200 a month, and market rents are like $1,900. So crazy. But yeah, that's the Louisiana one. All my stuff is in Oregon. The rest of them are in Oregon and Washington, the rest of them. And if anybody has questions, just raise your hand. If I say any terms or things you want more, clarity on, I would love to explain more. Yes? Okay, so the squatters, actually, that is such a good question. So those of you that know John Robinson, he's also a pastor. So he's a pastor and he's a real estate investor, and he has a church and the whole thing. And I asked him that because his job was to get the squatters out. So I asked John, I go, how did you get the squatters out? He goes, well, Rob, you know I'm a pastor. I'm like, yeah, I know you're a pastor. He goes, well, I have 2 hats. I have my pastor hat and I have my real estate investor hat. And I go, well, which hat did you wear? He goes, well, I took my pastor hat off. So I don't know how he got him out, but they left willingly. So it wasn't even, but I've had dealings with other squatters. So I recently renovated a property. I have a partner on a deal in Tacoma, Washington, and I would highly recommend you not buy long-term rentals in Tacoma. Tacoma has a ban on evictions that starts in September and lasts until April. So you cannot evict anyone in that time period because they don't want homeless people to be in the cold. So they don't want to make homeless people in the cold. So anyway, we had squatters in that one for 8 months. We got totally screwed on it, but it took us a very long time to get them out. It's a whole nother story. I would love to tell it, but we would be here for even longer till that one. But hit me up. If you have squatter issues, hit me up. I will give you advice on that if you ever have to deal with it. It's not as bad as you think. We usually do cash for keys. Monmouth, Oregon is one of my sub-2 deals. I inherited a squatter on that one. Moral of the story, whenever you're closing on a property, verify vacancy before you ever release funds. That is the best advice I have for anybody. So if you actually have a holdback or anything, go out and verify. I made that mistake on the Monmouth deal that I bought. I went out to the property after we closed, and there was a car in the driveway. And I was like, okay, someone must have just left their car, or a neighbor parked here, I don't know. So I go up to get in the house, and I'm like, wait, I hear noise inside. There's somebody in my house. Sure, I knock on the door, and I'm like, hey, who are you? And they're like, I live here. And I'm like, oh my God. But anyway, that one took 2 months and $1,700. So it took me a while of constant, I would call it being persistent. They would probably describe it as harassment, but I was very, very persistent. And then eventually got them to agree to $1,700 and got them moved out. So cash for keys is definitely like one of the best ways to do it. Okay, what is subject to? So subject to is purchasing a property subject to the existing liens, including mortgages or any type of lien that's on a property. So you can take over a property. You don't have to pay off the mortgage. You can take over solar liens, any type of lien or any type of debt on the property. You can purchase a property subject to those things. And that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. Well, why would you buy? Actually, before I go into this one, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, good. Okay, so why would you buy a subject to property? Oh yeah, here we go. Sorry, Shane, I missed you.
I was gonna say it, but I mean, maybe a little description of the framework. Like,
Yes.
You're not taking over their mortgage because then you have to leverage finance, show your debt to income, blah, 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 blah.
Yes. So this is the crazy thing. So like when you're buying,
It sounds crazy.
it is the craziest thing ever. So when you're buying, like, who here has got a traditional mortgage before? Okay, and you're going through the process and your loan officer goes, we just need one more document. We just need one. And you're like, is this the last one? Oh yeah, this is the last. Okay, great. Okay, good. Wait a second, the lender came back and they want a copy of your social security card. Okay, I thought you said we're out of documents. No, there's more. Anyway, so you've gone through this process. It is extremely painful. Now, here's the crazy thing when you buy a house subject to. There is none of that. You literally are paying money to transfer title, and that's it. There's no, they don't check, they don't even, you don't have to have any qualifications or anything. That's what makes it really scary, is that it's so easy to do. But you don't have to qualify for a mortgage. You just take over the property, but you also inherit the liens. So if you have bad liens, good liens, whatever, they're yours to deal with. Okay, so why buy a subject to property? So we have there's a bunch of reasons why. There we go. Okay, no, you're fine, you're good. Okay, appreciation. So this is the biggest, one of the biggest reasons why I purchased, is that the average home price in the US in 1925 was $6,000 to $7,500. So you could buy a house a long time ago, very, very cheap. Now, adjusted for inflation, that same money, that $6,000 to $7,500, is about $110,000 to $140,000 in today's dollars, $40,000 in today's money. As of 2024, the median home price in the US is around $417,000. So in 2025, a similar home may cost $425,000. So that's 3 to 4 times more than the inflation adjusted price from 1925. So homes have actually exceeded appreciation than just leaving money in the bank and just letting it sit there. So it's really crazy. And the best way to look at this is, my first home I purchased was in Molalla, Oregon. Anybody familiar with Molalla? If you're from there, it's Molalla. I bought the house in 2004 for $143,000. And when I bought it at the time, everybody was like, how much did you pay? Like $143,000. They're like, in Molalla? I went, yep, in Molalla. Well, fast forward right now, the house is worth $440,000. And it's actually almost done a triple in value in that time. So it's just crazy what appreciation can do. And that's one of the reasons why we buy property, subject to or traditional, is appreciation. The second reason is depreciation. So according to the IRS, they give you straight line depreciation for standard. It's 27 and a half years. I don't know why 27, why 27 or 28, or maybe match the mortgage of 30. I don't know. It's just a number that they came up with. But then you can do bonus depreciation. So in 2024, bonus depreciation dropped down to 60%. Is anybody familiar with what I'm talking about with bonus depreciation? Okay, good. We have some investors here. Bonus depreciation is where you can get a cost segregation study, a special study done where they put all the values into different categories and allow you to write off even more of a property. So for example, but in 2025, anything purchased before January 20th is actually at, I think it's at, no, it should be 40%. But they just brought back bonus depreciation. It's back to 100%, which is amazing. And the reason why that's amazing is last year is the first year I bought enough property the previous year to where I actually wiped out my income tax. So I didn't pay an income tax last year because of bonus depreciation. And you can get massive. You can do it for regular rentals. So if you have any rentals that you just purchased, hopefully you purchased them on January 20th or beyond, so you can get that bonus depreciation. But you also have to become a real estate professional. So that's the caveat. I can't offer any, I'm not a CPA and I'm not an attorney. I can't offer legal advice, but look into it. I have a lot of friends that have they have different ways of, becoming a real estate professional. And I would argue also, do we have any wholesalers here? We got a couple. I don't consider myself a wholesaler either, but I dabble. But you have to get licensed to become a wholesaler now in Oregon. So I would argue if you get licensed that maybe you're a real estate professional. I don't know. I would look into that. But it's a great way to save on taxes. Okay, cash flow and loan pay down. So lower interest rates than current investor loan products. I was really excited. I'm refinancing a property right now, and I got quoted at 6.6% on a DSCR loan, which is pretty low right now. Most of the stuff I've been doing was at 7%. But in my portfolio with Sub-2 deals, my lowest interest rate's at 2.2% interest. That is crazy low. So that's one of the things about buying Sub-2 is that you're buying really low interest rates. And I actually was bragging about that to Pace Morby, and then he had to one-up me and tell me he has a 1.8% is the lowest one in his portfolio. But I found a friend of mine that beat him. There's a deal right now in Florida that I guess the FHA or one of these organizations, the lowest rate that you can get is like a 1% interest. Have you ever heard about, has anybody ever heard about that? I have a friend selling a sub-2 deal right now at a 1% interest rate in Florida. And the PIT is like $800 on a house that rents for like $2,500. But he's also asking for like $80,000 assignment fee for it. So he's a bit crazy. And the other reason is loans, these loans that we're taking over are often 2, 3, or more years into the amortization schedule. So if you ever looked at an amortization schedule, you'll see that, oh my God, $100 goes to principal and $3,000 go to interest. So as it pays down, it kind of seesaws the other way. So being able to buy a loan several years into it is saving you a lot on interest. The other cool thing is that for leverage, so you can use the equity to secure private money lenders. So that's one of the other issues that we run into, is that we don't want to refinance the debt. And it's really hard to get debt in second position when you have a sub-2 deal. So a lot of times you can secure a private money lender, give them a note on your property behind a sub-2 debt, so you can raise some equity or raise some capital to go do more deals. And then just cheap debt. I kind of touched on it earlier. Like, where can you get an investor loan for 2% to 5%? It's ridiculous. Okay, so let's do a deal breakdown. This is a deal I purchased in, I want to say this was like 4, maybe 5 months ago in Brighton Bush. Kelly remembers it. You guys both went out to it, that's right. And happy birthday, Kelly. It's Kelly's birthday today, so I want everybody to wish her a happy birthday. Exactly. So Brighton Bush Avenue, these are the kind of deals that you can find, and we'll talk about how our team actually goes out and looks for these ones. But Brighton Bush Avenue, okay, so deal breakdown. So the house was built 8 months prior, so the house is actually a little over a year now, like a year and 4 months old now, or 5. But we actually gave the seller $3,000 to purchase this house. That's it. And the reason why they were willing to do this is that the seller is in the military and they got deployed. Actually, this seller was in Homeland Security and they got their job moved to Georgia. And they just purchased the house and it came with solar. So the house not only was no equity and it's a VA loan, so they got into it for very little. So if they were to sell traditionally, they would need to write a check for $20,000 to $30,000 to get out of this. So they looked at that and go, I can't, if I sell, I don't have $20,000. So luckily, a wholesaler called them, or actually they filled out a form, a wholesaler called them and locked them up, got them to agree to sell their property for $3,000. So the wholesaler reached out to me. I gave the wholesaler, I think it was $12,000 or $13,000. This HUD is so small that it's kind of hard to read it on there, but yeah, we gave him like $12,000 or $13,000. So all in, my entry fee was $20,656. So that's cash to the seller, cash to the wholesaler, closing costs, and that's devoid of holding expense. So it took me like a month and a half and I'll go over what I did with it in a second. Now, what's crazy about this is that we're getting it all in for 4.1 to 4.3 of the purchase price, depending on the as-is value of that. So when you think about that, of like being able to buy a property for 4% down, in essence, that's what you can do with sub-2 deals. Now, what we did with this one, because I didn't know what I was going to do, a traditional rental at the time or do a lease option, and we actually went and did a lease option. Is anyone familiar with what a lease option is? Okay, perfect. So for those that aren't, what a lease option is where we bring in a homestead buyer, we let them lease the property, and we give them an option to purchase it at a future date. Now, what is so cool about doing lease options is because you can take a property like this, where I'm into it for $20,000 plus holding. So roughly, I think with holding, we're probably at about, let's just say $25,000. Now, $25K, as a traditional rental, there's no equity in there. We're breaking even because the payment on this house is $3,000 a month. It's an expensive payment. So as the lease option, what we did, oh, sorry, I thought you raised your hand. You do? Okay, hit me up. Okay, awesome question. So how it flows, so we use the same process. So it'll go through a title company. So Basically, we have a purchase sale agreement. We go to title, we open title. Title gets the payoffs for everything and figures out what, what's left on the mortgage and everything. They figure all that stuff out. They figure out the purchase price. So our purchase price is basically the underlying debt, which is going to be the existing mortgage plus the solar. This house had solar, and then all the expenses on it. So the purchase price is actually devoid of like the assignment fee, but all that. And then once I take it over, there's two ways you can do it, and I'll cover both these a little bit later, but basically what we're doing is we're paying the mortgage directly. So we're making the payment to the mortgage, and then we're collecting money from a tenant. Yeah, it's actually due on sale clause. That's the part that we're getting around. So every loan, and we're going to talk about due on sale in a minute. So we'll cover due on sale here in a minute. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's a good question. So the laws that are in place are civil laws. So it's not a criminal act to take over a property in this manner. It is a civil, it's actually a contractual agreement is a better way to put it. It's like in the contract says that if he sells the property, the note is due. So what we do, and we don't hide this, because to hide it, there's a lot of people that get in trouble. So if you do it, I'm not a big fan of trusts. So there's some people will pitch, hey, if you put it in a trust, you kind of hide the ownership. We don't want to hide the ownership. We just put it in an LLC. So when we transfer title, and if the bank ever reaches out to us or says, hey, we have a due on sale, we want the mortgage called, it's kind of crazy. We just talk to them. I've never had one get called on me, and the ratios are about 1 in 5,000. They're really, really low.
I think
No, never pay the seller never makes the payment. Because in a subject to transaction, when we purchase it, title, see there's two different instruments at play here. One is the actual title of the property, who owns the property. So when title's transferred, I'm the owner of it. I don't own the debt, but the debt is recorded against the property. If I fail to pay the debt, then they will foreclose on the property and take it from me. But they're two separate things. So title and debt are two different things. Yes. Entitlements. So here's the cool thing. Entitlement, it's kind of crazy. Entitlements are all based on where you live, and there's different rates for like entitlements in California are much different than entitlements in Michigan or the Midwest or something like that with different rates. So when he goes to get another loan, he actually has more entitlement based on his current ratios at that time. So he'll actually have entitlement. A lot of people, I have friends that have VA loans that keep buying house after house after house with their entitlement. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, so that's how that works. Yeah, so this is the cool part. So whenever you're negotiating with sellers and you're wanting to purchase a subject to property, you need to know their timeline for their next purchase. You need to establish that up front. So if we're talking to a seller that wants to buy something in under 12 months, so 12 months or under, we're going to set up our purchase as a lease option. And the reason why is that when they go to make their next purchase, it's the same as if you bought another property and rented out your old property. The mortgage companies view it the same way. So if they want to use your money that you're giving them for down payment, we make it an option fee. So it's actually seasoned money that can go into their next transaction. So that's what we do with under 12 months. We're set up as a lease option, and then we're going to execute our option after they make their next purchase. Now, if someone is buying a property, if we're talking to a seller and they say, we're not making a purchase for, let's say they say a year, like, I don't know, maybe in a year or two, if they're saying something like that, we're going to make the purchase subject to. Now, when they go to apply for a new mortgage, mortgage companies, mortgage loan officers consider that note income. This is where it gets tricky, is that it's considered note income. So a note income is if, I loan you money, and that's a note, basically. It's the same thing. So the way that we structure the seller finance note, it's interesting because we call it a wraparound mortgage. That's what it's technically called, or an all-inclusive trust deed. They're both the same thing. But what that is when I sell a property, like Jesse sells his property to me, I'm going to do a wraparound mortgage. Basically it's a new mortgage that goes around the existing mortgage, but in favor of Jesse. And there's many reasons we do it, and we're going to touch on those later. But in this transaction, if I do it that way, it's considered note income to Jesse. Now, if he goes to make another purchase under 12 months, his mortgage loan officer is going to go, oh, wait, you sold this, there's a note on here, but it's not seasoned for at least 12 months. So I'm only gonna give you 25% off your DTI on this one, or a smaller percentage. Now, after 12 months, they'll take the whole amount off. So that's the cool thing. So it won't even count on your DTI for your next purchase. But the way to get around it is to do a lease option if it's under 12 months, because they'll remove all that off there if you structure it the right way. If it's under 12 months, lease option. So what you would do is you say, okay, Rob, I'm going to sell you the property. We're going to set up a lease with an option to purchase. The option is to be the sub-2 part after you buy your property. And we're going to structure the lease to where the payment, let's say that your mortgage is $2,000 a month. We're going to structure the lease at $2,500 a month. So your mortgage loan officer is going to go, okay, I see that Jesse has a payment of $2,000, but he's collecting $2,500. So I'm going to wipe out his DTI completely off this obligation. So, see his rental income, exactly. And I have a bunch of lenders. So if you need, they're really good about setting it up. That's why we always coach the people too, is like, we'll bring them to a lender that will do that for them. So not bank account. So in the mortgage portal, yes. Now there's two ways to do it. I prefer mortgage. Well, we always get portal access, always, 100%. Have to get portal access. It only gets tricky with there's certain banks that, like PNC, like I had a seller that sold on, there's a PNC, but then he's like, oh, what do I do here? Because all my bank accounts are connected to the same thing. So we had to go in and get those separated, which is a pain. But most of them are through regular servicers like Mr. Cooper, Rocket Mortgage, all those ones it's like a separate portal. So we get portal access. That's what you want. You need portal access so you can go in and get documents. You can actually communicate with the bank in a lot of them. So if they have questions or changes, you can just communicate directly with them. It makes it great. Now, as a seller, this is where there's two hats you have to have. So if you're buying sub-2, you just want portal access. It's way easier. But if you're selling, you're going to want a mortgage servicer, like a servicing company. So I use Guardian Contract Services, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. There's Evergreen, Sanium. There's all these different servicers that will service a loan. And the reason you want that is that, like in this, let's say that I'm selling a property to Jesse. Jesse's a good guy. We all know he's a good guy. But let's pretend that we don't know Jesse, and we're worried that, like what if he doesn't make the payment in the portal? I'm not even going to hear about it for months, and then the property could go into foreclosure, it could ruin my credit, all those kind of things. So I want him to make the payment through a servicer, so a neutral third party that tells me that he's making the payments. So that's why you use a servicer. Is just, hey, let's just make sure that we're setting it up that way. Yeah, please.
Use the insurance state.
Okay, insurance, dude. We're getting into all the good stuff. Okay, so when you're doing sub-2 insurance, everybody makes this really, really complicated. It's actually really, really simple. But what makes it hard is sometimes you're talking to your insurance provider, and some of them, like when I first did my first one, I was explaining to my insurance provider, and he just could not, he's just like, I don't understand. Why do you want me to put the seller's name on the insurance cert? And I'm like, because the debt's still in their name, and I need to show it to the mortgage company, because if you don't put the seller's name on the insurance cert, you run a high risk of due on sale. That's the number one risk in all these transactions, is actually insurance. So if you do the insurance wrong, and the reason why is because they have like a minimum wage employee that's reviewing these documents, and they're just like, wait a second, Bob's on the loan, but Bob's not on the insurance. This is a problem. And they'll run it up to a manager, and the manager goes, wait a second here, there's some funny business going on. And that's how these get flagged. So to do insurance properly, you need to have, so this is how we set ours up. So I have my LLC is the primary insured. The additional insured or additional interest is going to be the seller. So the seller needs to be on there in addition to the mortgage clause as well. So whoever, which is standard, all insurance companies will put the mortgage on there, but they will forget to put the seller on there. So make sure you have those on there, and you will have no problems with insurance. That's crazy. People miss that part of it. I don't have a problem with that. So here's what's going to happen though. Let's pretend your house burns down. You're listed additional insured, but they're going to send that check to the primary insured. A lot of times they'll put several different names on it, but it creates, I like to have control. So I want that check coming to me, and then me searching out other people to sign off. So that's where you run into that kind of a risk. I had a friend that had one that burned. They sent a check to the seller, and they didn't put any of the additional insureds on it. the seller, they're like, oh my God, dude, I got 100 grand here. Boom, cash that check. And now they have a property that needs to be renovated, but they're screwed. Yeah, we always do power of attorney too. Yeah, get a POA on it, but definitely use you as the primary insured. I highly recommend that. You want that coming to you. And don't be afraid of switching it out. I have other friends that are like, oh my God, don't switch your insurance. I've done it where I've even had it where they messed up and sent the wrong insurance in, and just went in and fixed it, and they're like, okay, everything looks good. So.
Becker deal itself.
Yeah.
You signed a 5-year on that first part.
Oh, the first one, yeah, exactly.
What do you do the 4-year one?
I'm gonna refinance it. So yeah, I'm just gonna go in and get a DSCR loan, cash amount. Yeah, you always want to have runway. When you're underwriting your deals, I do not recommend 5-year balloons. Like, I was brand new at that point, and I would not do that same deal right now. I would have structured it differently. 7-year is like the minimum I like to do, unless you're getting a really deep discount. 5-year does work, but you have to work on your underwriting. You have to figure out, what is this property worth when I need to refinance it? You really need to look at that. Yeah, 5-year is really short. Unless you're getting a smoking deal, 5 year is not a big deal. But 7 has seemed to be the magic point on most of my underwriting, because I'm figuring out loan pay down. I'm factoring in basic appreciation, not crazy appreciation, but just basic appreciation, and where that debt is going to look like. It's really hard to figure out though when interest rates, like if you were underwriting several years ago, did we know they were going to go to 7 so quick? We didn't know, or 8 or 9, it's just different. No, I do all the underwriting. The transaction coordinator is just having communication with title and then the sellers, and making sure that all that stuff's getting handled and all the right documents are getting set up. Yeah. I'm in the portal, I update all the information, so all the mail comes to me. So I get all the 1099s and everything. So it's actually not, this is the crazy part, that actual document is not given to, I talked to my CPA about this. That document's actually not reported to the government. It's actually given to you, and you report it to the government. And our contracts all say that we get the interest expense in the transaction. So I think some sellers might, if they actually got a copy of it, could report it, but it would be done illegally. Yeah, even if it says their information on there, we actually report that. We take that as a deduction. That would be them wrapping the mortgage to you. So we do a mirror wrap. So basically the underlying terms of their mortgage matches ours. So it's exactly the same. And we're actually paying the interest on the property. They are not paying the interest. That's why we're taking the deduction, because we are actually paying that. You can do that. But we just do mirror wraps or straight sub-2s. Yeah. Okay, so we actually dispoed this as a lease option. So what we did with this one is that this is what's crazy about a lease option, is that you sign a lease and you have an option agreement, and the option agreement comes with a fee. So they're going to give you a fee for the ability to make the purchase in 3 years. So what I did with this one is actually marked up the value of the home. So I sold the home to an end buyer for $580,000, and they actually gave me $15,000 for the option fee. So they gave me $15,000. I gave them the ability to buy it in 3 years at $580,000. So if you actually put this in an underwriting tool, if they execute at $580,000 in 3 years, I'll make $100,000 on this property. So that's the crazy thing you can do with lease options, that you can take a property where no one else can make money on this. Like if you tried to sell this in 3 years, it might be worth $580,000, I don't know. But I can sell it now for that. And if they don't execute on the option, then, usually I do things a little bit differently. Other investors will be like, okay, well, you didn't execute the option, so we got to do it all over again. So some do it that way. I actually give the people ability to purchase the property from me. I sell or finance it to them at that point. So I do it a little bit differently. And at that point, you can make crazy even more money, because you're carrying the note on it. Just like your example of where my interest rate's like 4.5, I could sell it to them at 7 or 8% interest, and I could make a spread on the interest, plus make a spread on, my underlying debt's probably only 480, 470 at the time, and theirs is at 580. So you're creating equity and creating a bunch of cash flow. Oh, the monthly payments? So it's just straight up rental. So it's just lease. Oh, you at the seller finance part? Oh, yeah. So this one, I'm renting it at $3,000 a month. So it literally matches my payment, underlying payment. Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's the cool thing about lease options is that you're getting all your rental income up front if you structure it right. So if you get that $15,000 up front and they're paying $3,000 a month, you're getting all your profit right up front. So that's how I structure mine. Yes, because we hold title. So we're the owners of it, so we depreciate it. And then when we do sell it, we actually sell it on a land contract. And we structure our land contract to where we still retain depreciation on it. And they wouldn't get that until they execute at the end. You can write anything you want into a land contract. It's pretty crazy. Because it's like rent to own. Like they don't own the property until they fulfill the contract. Okay, so that's what we did with this one. This is this deal here. So we created equity and the crazy thing is this property right here is in the same neighborhood for another one that I'll show you that we purchased next. There we go. Kind of looks similar, right? A little bit. There we go. It's the same builder. It's D.R. Horton. This neighborhood was built the same. This one we bought previous. This is Gray Avenue in Salem. It's literally like a half a mile from the other one. No, it's less than that. It's like 0.2 miles or something. It's kind of hard to see in this photo, but this is a Zillow listing. This guy too was in the military. He got transferred to Texas and he just bought the property. He only owned it for, I think like a year. And he actually, all this furnishing, it came furnished like this. It's kind of hard to see. You can still look it up on the listing, it shows it. But the dude put $30,000 worth of furniture in this house. And I was walking the property with, does anybody know Brad Contreras? See, Brad needs to get out here more. He's not making the rounds. So Brad is in Sub-2 and a really awesome guy. And he was gonna wholesale it to me, but we went and looked at it and I'm not a big fan of short-term, midterms. I have 4, but I'm not a big fan of that model. And we're walking the property together and we're looking at all the furniture and the agent, and we just asked the agent, like, well, so what's the seller doing with the furniture? He's like, oh, he's leaving it. You can have it. Like brand new TVs. There's like 3 brand new TVs in there and all the furniture and everything. And we're like, how much did he spend? He's like, oh, it's like $30,000 worth of stuff. So we immediately looked at each other and we're like, are we gonna do an Airbnb here? Do you want to do Airbnb? Because it's already furnished. So here's the deal breakdown. So house was built in 2022. Actually, it's older than I thought. So 2022. It came with $30K with the furniture. The as-is value is the 5 to 520. So we got into this one for $23,477. So 4.5 to 4.7% of the purchase. And we short-term rented it. It's performing well right now, but during the winter, does anybody have short terms or midterms? How was your winter? It was awful. That's why I don't like short term or midterms right now. It's super slow. Summer picked up. It's been better. Hopefully that we have a harsh winter this year, so there's lots of insurance claims and everything, and we can fill up our properties. And I like insurance work for many reasons. So, but yeah, so that's what we did with this one. Yeah.
How are you funding the entry?
Using our own capital. So yeah, we're using all of our own money. So we have active income from our construction companies and all that kind of stuff. So that's another example of stuff you can get. The wholesaler in this one, I think we paid him like $4,000 for this one. So 4,000 to the wholesaler. I don't remember what the seller got. It wasn't a whole lot. We did pay an agent. Our biggest fee on that one was the agent fee of like almost $13K. So agent really made some money on that one. Okay, so how do I find creative deals and what do I look for? So this is how, if you want to find deals just like this one, this is the criteria. So we're looking for 90 days on market. So if you go on market and you find 90 stuff that's been on market 90 days, how many agents do we have here? So we have Ryan. Okay, so agents in the room. When you list something, in the first 30 days, everything's kind of cool, right? Nothing's really moving and it's kind of slow. You're like, everything's good. Your seller's somewhat happy usually. No action happens after 60 days. They might, get maybe a little bit irritated with you. They're kind of, things are not going so good. But something magic happens at 90 days. At 90 days, if there's not really much going on, they're going, is this the right agent for me? Like, what are they doing? Why is my property sitting? They're starting to get frustrated and they're starting to grumble and be upset. So that's why we pick 90 days, is that we're reaching out to agents that are going, I really want to sell this house. I'm interested in selling. So they actually raise their hand and go, you know what, I think I'm open to a creative offer. So when we call the agent after 90 days, we always compliment the listing. So we're always trying to, flattery actually works really. Does it work well on you, Ryan? A little bit. So we're complimenting the listing. And then we're always asking them, what's the feedback? What kind of feedback are you getting from sellers? And this is the hard part. Is when you ask this, you actually just have to zip it and be quiet. I tend to talk too much, so it's really hard for me to sit there and be quiet. But if I can sit there long enough and let them talk, they will tell you everything. They will tell you all the problems, all the issues, why people aren't buying it, what they think it is. So you want to write all that stuff down because you want to know what's going on with the property. And then you want to pivot into explain that you work with a creative real estate investor and that we buy things differently. And would the seller be open to a creative offer? That's all you have to do, because some sellers, now it's a little bit different. This stuff still works, but how many times, Ryan, do you get called up on listings and people pitch you on creative?
With investment properties per house.
Fair amount.
I've sold one Sub-2.
See, there you go. So once you ask this, like, would they be open to a creative offer? If they say yes, then all you have to do is see, Ryan sold them Sub-2 before. So reach out to Ryan, say, hey, I got this lead. What can I do with it? And that's all you have to do to find the opportunity on this. It's actually that simple. It doesn't take a whole lot. It's not very complex. Now, once Ryan calls them up, he can actually help, you walk through the process. And if you get stuck on anything, you can always call me. We can figure these ones out. And then after you've done a transaction, your next one's much easier. Oh yeah, see right there, book a call with Ryan. There you go.
So the opposite, we're gonna say no.
Yeah. If you say no, what we'll do is go, okay, that sounds great. Do you have any other listings that would be open to something like that? That's what I do. I pivot right in. Do you have anything else? And if they say no to that too, I'm like, I really don't. Then I talk about all the ones that I've purchased this way. I said, okay, well, we actually help sellers. I had this one seller. If he came out of pocket, he'd have to come out of pocket $30,000. Do you have any sellers that fit that situation? So I try to paint a picture of what that looks like. And so, it's kind of funny. Most agents are pretty nice and they're not rude, surprisingly. You would think that after hearing it, you probably have heard it, the pitch a million times, and you're a nice guy, so you probably are nice to them. But some agents are nice. But then we follow up with them, because if it sits long enough, at the 3-month mark, we're going to follow up at 4 months, then 5 months. And then at 6 months, we're following up with the seller directly. We're watching those ones. Because when it goes expired, that's when agents get fired. And sellers they're like, oh my God, I've been making payments on my house for 6 months. Nothing's happened. I don't like what's going on. And then they're open to our offer. And it's crazy. We follow up with sellers, and a lot of sellers, we just ask them, hey, did Ryan let you know that we pitched you on this offer? And a lot of times they go, no, I didn't even know that this existed. So then we're pitching sellers directly Sub-2 at that point. It's very important to put that out there that you're going to get them paid, because if you pitch it in a way to where it sounds like there's no reason for them to bring that offer to their seller, because at the end of the day, everybody needs to eat, everybody needs to get paid. So yeah, we definitely let them know that they're going to get paid. Yeah.
One quick thought.
Yeah.
Is that legally, it's always a courtesy to talk to the agent if it's a listed property and explain the situation. But legally, we have to present any written offer to our clients. So anyway.
Yeah, no, we do force that too. So we will email an offer in and send an LOI or send in a traditional offer. We'll do that too. I think it's easier for us just to try to pitch the agent on it. But you're right, though. That is a great way to. I do have.
If you feel like the word's not getting to the seller,
yeah,
or something else, or you really want to initiate that conversation, that might be. But just like the cash for keys, it's usually better to honey versus vinegar or whatever that.
Oh yes,
yeah,
completely.
Hey,
yeah,
we're gonna get you paid your commission. Let's make this work. What can we do?
Yeah, I love Ryan's. Answer that one, dude, because you have the best answer.
I mean, so if you are working with an agent, then that agent should be asking for a copy of the rejection. So technically, if they're flat out rejecting it, you should be asking for, hey, just for my file, I've got to get it for my compliance. My reviewing broker, I want to get a copy of the rejection. Technically, if it expires though, if you put a date at expirate, all offers have expiration date. Technically, if it's past that date, you really don't have to because it's just a dead deal anyway. But a lot of times we push the issue and say, hey, can I get the official rejection just to make sure that it really is being presented? But it's pretty rare that that happens, to be honest. But I don't think, yeah, I'm too trustworthy sometimes, but I think it's pretty rare that an agent wouldn't do that because they would be called to the carpet if ethics and get their license revoked and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. All right. So how we protect the seller. So this is the most important thing in these transactions because since it's so easy to transfer title and leave the debt in their name, I think it's unethical to do it in a way to where you put them in a bad position. So how we protect the seller is through those instrument that I mentioned earlier, a mirror wrap, so a wraparound mortgage. It's also known as an all-inclusive trust deed. So it's the same instrument. But what that does is it gives the seller, so in the event that you default on them, it gives them an instrument just like a bank does to take the property back. Now, granted, they have to go through the foreclosure process to do this, but it is an instrument that is available to them to get the property back. Now, if you transfer title without giving them a wraparound mortgage, there's no way for them to take the property back. They have no instrument. We call that a naked Sub-2. The very first property I purchased was from a wholesaler. I had no idea how the paperwork or mechanics worked at the time, and they transferred it to me that way. So I actually purchased my first one without a wraparound mortgage, just a naked Sub-2. So that's where title transfers. There's no new mortgage around the existing. And it also protects you too. So when you go to refinance a property, I'm learning this right now because I'm refinancing that very first one. And the lender, this is what's crazy about it, is that the lender in a refinance transaction looks at the debt differently with a Sub-2. They look at it and they go, how come this property defaulted? They're asking you that. Why did you default on this note? I'm like, I reinstated the loan and did all the things, but they're showing it as not a note that I'm on, if that makes sense. So if you have your own note on there and it's seasoned, you've owned it for a certain amount of time, it's very easy to refinance. It is more difficult. And the guidelines have changed actually in the last 12 months. Before 12 months, these were easier to do. But one of the reasons why is that BlackRock is one of the biggest purchasers of these, mortgage-backed securities. And they actually have an issue with that now. They've seen higher default rates in that category, so they're not like those ones. So definitely do a wraparound mortgage if you're going to do one of these ones. Any questions on that? Okay, good. Okay, so wraparound mortgage, and then servicing is the other one. Get servicing set up if you want to protect the seller. Servicing is a real pain in the ass, though. I really don't like servicing. I'll give you an example why. One of the Sub-2 deals I bought in Salem has this small servicer. They're out of Florida. And in the beginning, things were great. I was making the payment to the servicer. They were pulling it, in order to get the payment there by the 5th of the month, they're pulling it from my account on the 25th. Now, something, I don't know if it's the servicer or the mortgage company, the payment started getting there like by the 12th with the same, like they ACH me on the 25th, but the payment wasn't getting there. So I had the seller calling me, hey, is everything okay? Are you, is there something going on? I'm like, no, everything's the same. You see the statements, they pull the money out. So we actually had to move servicing up to the 15th of the month. So I was paying the payment on the 15th so it could get there by like the 5th. So cash flow wise with servicing, you have to pay way in advance depending on the servicer. So that's one of the downsides of using servicing. But as a seller, you want servicing because now you know that things are getting paid. Yeah. Servicer. Okay, so servicer it's kind of funny, like all these companies, they do the same thing. They don't actually collect the money. You pay a servicer and then the servicer pays the mortgage. So like there's a whole industry of that set up. So it's just a neutral third party, like an escrow company that you pay and makes the payment on your behalf. And they're neutral, so they let everybody know who's making the payments and who's paid and who hasn't paid. So it takes out the he said, she said. Okay, so that's how we protect the seller. Okay, due on sale. Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, please. Yeah, lawyer. So what we've done is we actually have all of our notes. We have notes for Oregon. I think we have a separate note for Washington that we have a note in Indeed, basically. So yeah, our lawyer prepared them, but they're templates. So we just reuse them over and over and over again.
Right. I mean, not all lawyers.
Yeah.
So, do you have?
Yes. 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 You can reach out. Actually, my TC is the one that prepares all of them. So he has, and I could put you in contact with him because, and actually, he's actually going to be on the next slide because due on sale. So when due on sale, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. So due on sale, it's the big boogeyman. Everybody's like, oh my God, due on sale clause, so scary. But it's actually a very small percentage of them actually happen. Now, where you run into a real risk is when you're dealing with community banks. The chance of due on sale is way higher. There's two different types of, like when you get a traditional mortgage with like Rocket Mortgage or any one of the standard ones, New Res, all Shell Point, Mr. Cooper, all those ones there, after they issue those ones, we say that they throw it in a bin. They just put it in a bin, they never look at it. If you stop making payments, they're gonna pull that out and examine things closely. So if you ever get behind, that's when you run risk of due on sale. But if you're with a small community bank, they actually keep those on their desk. Those are things they review more frequently. They're looking for things like that. They care about things like that. So we won't do a subject to with like a community bank type note, and we won't do commercial sub-2s. We do those ones actually differently. We do those with an LLC. So like, if the seller has a property in LLC, we'll buy the rights to the LLC. That's how we transfer title or ownership in that situation. But if you get due on sale called, it's not the end of the world. It's kind of crazy. I have a bunch of friends that have actually had it happen. And the first step we do is we actually just call the bank. So that's what they do. Just call the bank. Hey, they get the notice. They reach out to them. Hey, what do you want to do with this? They're just like, well, we just want to know what's going on. Oh, we purchased the property. We transferred. We did all these things. Most of the time they just say, okay, we just wanted to know what's going on. But if you stop making your payments, we're going to foreclose on you. So typically they don't do anything. For the ones where they actually do something, we actually set up a lease option. So we'll deed the property back to the seller and we'll set up a lease with an option to buy. So the same kind of arrangement. So that's how we solve due on sale, and that will actually solve it at that point. The problem with doing a lease option though, this is why I don't like them, is that you don't have control. You don't have ownership in the property. So when you transfer something back to, I love using you as an example. So if I transferred it back to Jesse, and Jesse sold the property to me, we got due on sale, I transfer it back to Jesse. We all know Jesse's a good guy, but let's pretend that we don't know him, and Jesse goes out and gets a bunch of, let's say you're going through a hard patch and you get a bunch of judgments and liens that come against you. Since he's on title and I'm not on title, liens and judgments can pile up on the property that I purchased, but I had to do lease option with him. So that's why we don't like lease options. That's why we like to retain control. So now there's another way you can solve it. If you want to be an uber gangster, we actually have a guy in Las Vegas. He's an attorney. And what he does is he has a bunch of seasoned LLCs. And what you do is you're going to transfer your property into one of his seasoned LLCs. He's going to run it through the bankruptcy court. He's going to strip off the due on sale clause, and he's going to retitle it back to you. But he's expensive. He charges $15K to do that. Now, it makes sense when, let's say you're going to save like $200,000 over the life of a loan at a low interest rate. You have to pay him $15K. It's not a big deal, but it's still $15,000. So it's not. So if you want his contact, you can reach out to me and I can put you in contact with him. I like that one. I want to try that one, but I haven't had a due on sale called yet. But I'll report back. If I ever go through it, I'll definitely let everybody know. Okay, so this is who I call. So this is Michael Kim. This is my buddy. He does all my transactions. He's also a partner in a few deals that I have. And he's the guy that fixes the due on sale. So if you have due on sale called, he's fixed it several times for other investors. I've not needed it yet, but when I do, this is the guy. If you need his contact info, reach out. I can put you in contact with him. So he's the guy you want to reach out to. Oh, I guess I'm at the end of my slide. So if you want to stay connected with me, that is my Instagram. That's the easiest way to reach out to me, is at the Rob Harden on Instagram. Do we have any other questions? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. the scary part with any type of bankruptcy filing, so in our paperwork, we have an agreement with the seller. In the event of bankruptcy, they're supposed to exclude it from their bankruptcy. So I've not experienced that. I have friends that have gone through that, and they've actually had to go and reach out to the attorneys in the case and show them the contract, and they will actually exclude it from the bankruptcy. They've done that. That's one thing. But the other scary thing is I think there's a certain period of time of like 12 months or something. So if they file bankruptcy 12 months after whatever transaction, then it's kind of not looked at or excluded anyway.
So the media is just a part of the agreement.
Yeah, yeah. Main thing is in the purchase and sale agreement that you have with the seller. Our Sub-2, so when you join Sub-2, you have access to all of PACE's contracts, and they're actually tested. They've been tested in court in all 50 states. Like they've gone through the court system. So he actually has like one that works. That's the one we use. So we have a small room here. So okay, so you ready for who you're going to reach out to? This is who I use. Her name's Heidi. You do? We have one title here? Who's here? He left. He's like, due on sale, I'm out of here. Okay, so Heidi Lloyd, she's out of Stewart Title in Renton, Washington. She will close your Sub-2 deals here in Oregon. VA, FHA, she's an absolute gangster. Heidi Lloyd. I normally would never give out, because the problem that we run into with title companies that I've gone through so many in Oregon that will do them. They're like, I had one title company, they're like, we will do FHA, but we will not do VA. I'm like, what? Get them to close out. So with the equity line, if you have your seller reach out and close it and amortize it basically, so they can't, because those are real dangerous. Like imagine buying a property and then they go open it up again and like, you only thought they had 20K in the equity line and then boom, they max it out. And you're like, oh, great. So have them go close something like that and amortize it. And you can take those over too. But reach out to Heidi. So Heidi Lloyd is Stewart Title in Renton, Washington. And let her know that I sent you my way. We'll blow her phone up and yeah, just do self-perform, right? You just self-perform them. Yes, she will give you title insurance. Yeah, that's what I want too. I don't like I don't like self-perform. I'll close it. Yeah, I mean, the next best thing is do like a land contract, which I hate it, but no. It's very scary. I only have one land contract that I purchased on, and I don't like it because it's just not, you don't fully own it. Okay, so a land contract is like a glorified lease option. It's better than a lease option, but the problem is that you have like equitable interest, but you really don't own it until you fulfill the obligation. So like once you pay, it's like renting a rent-to-own situation. Like you kind of own it, but you have an interest in it, but you don't really own it. And if the seller has judgments or anything come in against them, they can get recorded on the property.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's kind of scary.
Rob will probably hang out for a few more minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody give Robert a huge round of applause.